Building on last year's success, Defender Europe 21 will build readiness and interoperability between allies and partners and prepare our forces to rapidly respond to crisis and conduct large-scale combat operations if called upon. It will exercise U.S. Army Europe and Africa's ability to serve as a combined Joint Force Land Component Command and as a security partner in the strategically important Balkans and Black Sea regions, while sustaining our activities in Northern Europe and Africa. Defender Europe 21 will feature the participation of approximately 28,000 multinational forces from 27 nations conducting nearly simultaneous operations across more than 30 training areas in 12 countries. Critical to this endeavor will be the strict COVID prevention and mitigation strategy implemented by U.S. and participating nations. Exercises like Defender Europe 21 demonstrates that the U.S. commitment to NATO is ironclad, and that NATO allies and partners stand stronger together.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
I really do hope that you paid attention to the video that I played at the beginning of this podcast, because it's really going to set the tone of everything that we're going to be talking about today, because all the developments are really important. They have actually accelerated as the days went by. You know, last week I was in the hospital with my dad, taking care of him and everything. So that, you know, impaired me from being able to do the podcast until this week. And even though I was there with my dad, I was still paying attention to the news. You know, I looked at the news from where it first started being reported about Ukraine and Russia and everything like that. You know, everything accelerated very quickly in just 1 week. And now we have timelines. Again, you know, that is the important thing. So at least this silver lining of the things that could happen, that now we have timelines. And that is something that I've been warning you in this podcast. I've been telling you that the possibility for the United States to go to war with China has been in the next several months, several years, you know, in 10 years, whatever the case may be, or whenever it happens, but the timeline is there. And you have to do everything, you know, you have to prepare with a sense of urgency in order for you to be prepared for the eventual war that we're going to have against China. But now everything has shifted focus from China to the United States and Russia, and actually NATO and Ukraine and everybody else. But the point is that even though China has not gone away, that's still there. That possibility, that threat is still there. Now we're adding Russia on top of it. You know, for a long time, you know, the entire time that Trump was in office, everything was focused around China with the tariffs and everything like that. Now that Biden is in the office, in the White House, everything shifted the focus. Even though we're still there, we have shifted the focus onto Russia right now, especially in the past week and a half. So now that we have all this going on, it's really important that you do everything in your power, not only to keep prepping and continue doing it, but, you know, to know this information. And one of the things that I've always told you here in this podcast is that it doesn't really matter how much information you know. If you don't do anything about it, if you don't prepare for it, then it's not going to do you any good. And at the end of the day, you're going to suffer with everybody else who didn't get prepared. All right. That is the reason why our mission here in this podcast, in this organization, in this, you know, community of preppers, whatever you want to call it, our mission is, you know, to reestablish or restore the reputation to preppers. And not only that, but, you know, also be like a refuge to the unprepared, because they didn't want to prepare, but we did. You know, I don't want to be the selfish prepper, or this community of preppers to be selfish to where, hey, we prepare, you stay away. But rather be like, all right, we prepare, you didn't, but this is the steps that we can take in order for us to be able to get ourselves out of this situation, you know, as Christians, as humanity, as Americans, whatever you want to label it. But we can work together so the suffering can be kept at a minimum, especially if there's more than one prepper, you know, in your area. So those possibilities are there. And now that we have a timeline that we could possibly go to war in the next month, it is going to be essential for us to make sure that we have everything in place, especially with spring coming around, because now we have the opportunity not only to continue to gather the things that we need for food and water, because those are the very first things that are going to go out the window, but also to grow our own garden, to get our own farm animals, and do everything in our ability to be self-sustained in the next month, because if a war does break out right now in the next month, that the first thing that's going to suffer is going to be the supply chain. If you thought that COVID-19 freaked people out and made everybody go nuts, go into the stores, clean everything out, just wait for when bullets and nukes and bombs are flying around, people are going to freak out even more. And the United States has pretty much been like a tinderbox ready to explode, and that just might do it. So we really have to make sure that we pay attention to this information, that we know what's going on, that we prepare for it accordingly, accurately. But not only that we share this information with your friends and family. Because I'm doing my part. I'm making the podcast. I'm looking at the information. I'm gathering it for you. I'm putting in a presentation, uploading it into all the social medias that we have. We have done our part. Now, your part is for you to put this on your social media so your friends and family can see it, so they can see what are the proper steps to prepare, what they can do if we actually do go to war in the next month or sooner, and the things that they can do for them to kind of not have such a horrible time if nukes do start flying in the United States. All right, so that's what I'm going to be focusing in this podcast. And also all the steps that have been taken, how everything has accelerated with this possible war against Russia. And even though right now everything's between Ukraine and Russia, the United States is going to get involved very, very quickly. And as I'm going to show you, NATO will too.
The Man-Made Survival Show.